So there's a few builds I've seen at Clem recently. This isn't entirely one of them. Like I've even seen him 2-racks ShoWTimE at some point, where the 2-racks kind of failed, and then he went to double Tech Lab Marauder while making Hellions at home and ended up winning the game kind of thing. So ShoWTimE, like seeing this, knowing there's a barracks out on the map, the main question is, okay, where is it? Is it close to my base? Is it close to your base? Second thing is, what's going to happen with it? Because the arsenal that Terran has right now available against Protoss, like the options are absolutely endless.
Yeah, there's so much that you can do, right? There's a lot of flexibility in this matchup, and we see lots of players that have been opening up with this type of setup. We saw it out of Uthermal as well. So ShoWTimE should not be a stranger to these types of builds. But, you know, Terran versus Protoss has had those interesting changes in the ways that its metagame has also kind of moved around between, oh, what does a proxy really mean, right? Is it just going to be like, am I going to be hit with some Marines? Is it going to be some Reapers? We know that for the most part, Terrans like to do the factory back home after they proxy the barracks out on the map. But for the probe to still be here and see that still nothing has changed, you have to be scratching your head. So he's proxying the factory. We can see that. Is it going to be just straight into Hellions? Is he going to try to just reactor out Marines and push early with like a mine and a medevac? I'm not 100% sure yet. There's a lot of ways to take this, right?
If I was a gambling man, I'd say this is 2 Hellions into 4 Widow Mines afterwards. And I think it's going to be a lot of Widow Mines. Yeah, okay, so this particular variation, this is something I first saw TY do. So yeah, absolutely taking a page out of his book if he is going to go for it. But Clem is an absolute master when it comes to Hellion drops, so I'm still not going to rule that one out. But yeah, this is obviously going to, and it is going to be the Hellion variation, actually. This is something that I've seen ShoWTimE, you know, take a lot of damage to. In fact, a lot of Protoss take a lot of damage to. So it's going to come down to how well does ShoWTimE actually handle this, and what does Clem do as a follow-up? Because this is very much intended to deal a lot of damage. Ooh, armory afterwards. So maybe Widow Mines afterwards, after all.
So this one's just going to get freaky then, is what we're looking at. So the Widow Mines with the armory as the follow-up. It's going to be a very in-your-face sort of setup, perhaps even akin to Hero Marines play that we just saw against the laser, with just lots of mine drops kind of going in and all over the place. That's definitely a strategy that's popular versus Protoss. As we know, those probes, they do like to clump up when the Widow Mines are nearby from time to time.
By the way, the CC still hasn't started for Clem. I think he kind of misproduced a Widow Mine here, like one at a time out of the reactor. So now he has to wait a little bit. He would have loved this to be probably 4 Widow Mines with this drop. But now ShoWTimE's in that position. He knows Hellions are on the map. Does he just wall off his natural? How does he deal with this? The Observer flies by. I don't think it saw the Hellions at all. And now he's going to have to defend against the drop that he kind of knows is coming. Oh my god, is the medevac coming to the natural? This could get super spicy.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is the one place where all of the stalkers are actually somewhat decently positioned, right? So they're at least able to get a couple of hits on the medevacs, but the mines are still able to burrow. The first one killed, second one gets 11 probe kills, and that is a wild amount of damage. That is exactly the kind of hit that you are looking for in this situation. The Hellions are still inside of the main base too, so we get a couple more probes roasted and toasted. A few of them very low on hit points, and 14 workers after that first decisive strike. And Benjamin, that's definitely got to feel good if you are Clem. Maybe you wanted to get more out of that. I'm not sure with how late this command center was, but it certainly wasn't a little bit of damage.
I think that went about as bad as it could for ShoWTimE, honestly, considering he was almost in perfect position. There was just a little bit of missed micro there. But now he's on the counter-offensive. That bunker isn't yet done, and immediately he has to throw down a turret, which he doesn't really want to be doing. And this is all to try and get that bunker up, which it will go up. But now getting behind, there's going to be quite a bit of counter damage done. And on the other side of things, we have a warp prism being made, which is awesome. And also a robo bay of all things. So ShoWTimE's bringing the crazy back to Clem.
Yeah, he's getting very aggressive with this setup. It's going to try to blow open the door as a siege tank is going to pop. Might have wanted to be able to grab that as soon as it did appear. And I mean, these types of movements are always awkward. That tank is going to get a whole lot of damage done. Stalker blown up, going for 2, 3, and only 1 makes it through the Bifrost to get back home. So ShoWTimE, yeah, that's hard. He did get the worker count difference back up though, right? He's still He's still in a good spot as far as economy goes now, but this has been a very haphazard game for him. A lot of resources, perhaps unnecessarily or needlessly lost.
Yeah, I liked the initial move behind the mineral line, but then moving up like he did, maybe that was a bit too ballsy. But if he felt that he was very, very far behind, which I guess he was, like from that Widowmine or Hellion drop for sure, he had to do something a bit crazy to get back into the game.
The auto turret in that natural is going to grab a handful of probes. Even just, the residual damage of forcing all the workers to get pulled off. You're taking APM and attention away from your opponent. Now, we do have Warp Prism speed ready to rock and roll, and there is a Colossus inside of that Prism. So when you see this move out, this is perhaps the ideal situation then if you're ShoWTimE, is you want to shave off or damage as much of the Marines as possible, do as much work there as you can. The tanks do have to move their turrets to shoot. So there is a little bit of micro you can do with the pickup and drop, and with another Colossus building back home and charge researching, I don't mind that setup at all.
I like the fact that ShoWTimE didn't yet throw down a third. He's actually just kind of saying to himself, okay, I'm going to deal economic damage. I'm going to set up at my natural here. And we all know how good those overcharged batteries can be. Ooh, this is definitely a great position for Clem. And oh, he's actually in range of the battery itself as well. Viking is out at home for him as well to help deal with this Warp Prism and Colossi, which has been super annoying.
Yeah, this is what got him though, right? This was kind of the Achilles heel for the Protoss setup on this map. The Robo facility killed right before the first disruptor pops. But this is the map. Oxide is where Uthermal actually was able to get this setup. And he's like, all right, I've got 3 tanks outside your natural. It was in a much earlier stage of the game, but regardless, you're still going to have a very limited amount of surface area to reach those tanks. But charge is almost done. And if there is one thing that can be good against the tanks, I wanted to say pre-stim, but stim is about to finish with +1. So yeah, there's not that many Marines though, right? Like when charge is done, there's a chance to push this out.
There's definitely a chance, especially with the Warp Prism being out on the map. Like I can imagine a warping of Zealots on the other side of things being really annoying. Clem does actually foresee this kind of situation though, and does end up running home. And the fact that he's seen and delayed a third base for as long as he has, and he starts up his own, is actually a very nice situation for Clem economically.
Yeah, and he's got that third command center now starting up. So it's not like this was some sort of situation where ShoWTimE gets contained and then he can't expand and Clem's like, I've got a third already saturated by the time you even start your third. It's like, no, your third is... He did want to start it there. Leaving 1 Marine was very smart of him because he had to send a Zealot over there just to be able to start the third Nexus. But that's the kind of little details that can end up having a big impact that we'll pay attention to because it's not completely set either way. Still looking like a very competitive match between these two gentlemen.
Certainly is, and the Warp Prism with speed is still no slouch, because that could really cause havoc. And if ShoWTimE is looking to maybe distract at the front here while getting the Warp Prism in, but that Viking's still in a beautiful position here, deflecting all potential damage in Clem's main base. Clem is still building up a decent tank count, up to 6 right now, which is super good against the Colossus, not so good against the Charge Lots and the Archons, but the Bio will kind of take care of all that.
Yeah, the Bio is going to be very strong against pretty much everything, right? Except the Colossi, unless you can get on top of it. I like the Raven retention on the side of Clem. It's a difficult unit, I think, to micro with the entire Terran army, but the value that it can provide with either neutralizing the Colossi or the Warp Prism even is just huge. And if the Zealot count does get too high, then I think we all know that anti-armor missile absolutely obliterates Zealots if your Marines are able to shoot them when they have that debuff.
Oh, but this is kind of an all-in from Clem, it must be said. Like, there's no armory on the way, I don't think, so it's going to be like a 1-1 timing. But the ability of this to actually knock ShoWTimE out. But that being said, ShoWTimE is actually going into the natural here very, very quickly, and Clem's moving home.
Yeah, this is always kind of awkward when this situation occurs, is you're trying to like get into a position to punish them for trying to move out or go for a backstab, but he keeps pulling the Zealots that he split off with the rest of his army. I don't know if they were all still on the same hotkey, if there was an F2 mistake, but yeah, then he recalls them. I think there was an opportunity at the very least while he was trading some of those units to be able to kill a tremendous amount of the economy of Clem. A bit of a missed opportunity there from the Protoss.
And how did those probes end up over there? They kind of went to the wrong side of the map a little bit, but ShoWTimE, he has to buy more time here. He can't let these siege tanks set up against him, and he does buy time, but at the cost of like 6-7 zealots here. I think Clem's handling this phenomenally.
Yeah, and that army is so terrifying. You were just talking about the siege tanks. We have a robo-based army here, and there are so many tanks. Disruptor shots look good on the biome, but the tank backbone is going to allow a much a depleted force to still have a rather large impact on this. He's going to try to sandwich him with the Colossi coming in from the south, the Zealots from the north, but there's still plenty of bio here. Just need the Colossi to get targeted down by the siege tanks. Let them do that big old anti-armor damage with the Marauders, and they will. Everything tumbles and crumbles. GG Clem takes game number 1.
Yeah, he does, and in very Clem fashion as well. Like, he started off that game with some tempo, did a lot of economic damage, and ShoWTimE, all it comes down to is, can he not take damage early on? And it seems to be that Clem just does this better than seemingly anyone, and then he gets a little bit flustered, does a counterattack, moves up a ramp against like the Marines and the tank on the other side, and then he tries to recall, only saving 1 Stalker out of the 7 that he ran in there with. It's definitely sucky, but you can definitely tell that ShoWTimE's feeling the pressure a little bit, because as you said, those Zealots, if they did run into the natural and just go rampage mode, that actually wouldn't have been the worst trade in the world for him, but that's not what happened. There was a bit of F2 going on or something. There was Zealots kind of dying here, there, and everywhere. ShoWTimE's definitely going to have to step it up a gear to contend with Clem, because Clem so far is... He really is so consistent, and it's so beautiful to see that he's managing to not only hold this really good play that he's doing, but he's actually managing to accelerate. And who knows where Clem's going to end up if he keeps on going.
Yeah, no, that game was just that. Yeah, you said it perfectly. And just to reiterate on your point, that there's some missed opportunities. The Zealot's not getting split off into that worker line, not checking that even that third base that he wanted to take that had that Marine blocking it to delete that third tremendously. All those probes getting pushed away, but also at the very beginning, you said it beautifully. All the Stalkers were at the natural or watching the main ramp. There was very little by like that main mineral line, and yet the medevac flew straight over all of those Stalkers and still killed 14 probes. So he was in the best position he could have been in to defend it and wasn't able to capitalize. And that's a mistake that Clem will punish you for every time.
It was a bit of a double whammy, right? Like, it was slightly too late on the probe pull, slightly too late. One of the Widowmines died as it fired and killed like 7 probes alone. And then the block against the Hellions on the ramp, he kind of missed the block with the Stalkers. All went a bit tits up from there, really. Anyhow, spawning over in the bottom right-hand side as our blue Terran, it is Liquid's Clem.
And spawning in the top left position, we have the red Protoss player. He is ShoWTimE.
Okay, this variant of Clem, so this is the gas first with the SCV scout at the same time that you throw up the first gas. This is almost undoubtedly going to be an engineering bay block. This became very common from Maru versus Trap, I believe, in the GSL, where he did this quite a bit. And it's almost always followed up by a Hellion drop. Luckily, ShoWTimE kind of scouts this fairly early with his probe. We'll bring over a few more probes and, can't be wasting time like this, though. Has to deal with it.
When the 3 of them just go there and they just stop for a second, I'm like, is this thing on? Are we okay, guys?
Yeah, definitely a bit crucial there, because every second counts, right? And there's been meta in how Protosses actually deal with this. Quite a few Protosses will be like, all right, I'm just going to take a natural elsewhere and get up my Nexus much faster that way. Some people get, was that not cancelled? Oh, Clem didn't cancel it. I can see the frustration on his face.
That's
definitely a bit of a blunder there for the young Terran.
That's definitely awkward. And I was going to say, you bring up an excellent point, because a lot of Protoss players will just take that Nexus somewhere else, right? If they don't want to wait. And that's usually some planned by the Terran to some degree, where we've seen some pretty big aggressive assaults on the natural because it's at that forward third area. It's not as easy to wall off. if you take any of the other expansions, you know, like, it's just the way that it's how StarCraft works. Your natural is always supposed to be, for the most part, easier to defend than your third or your fourth position. So you don't want to set yourself up in a position where you can kind of play into the Terran's plan, because the Hellions are being built. If he had taken that natural outstretched and just moved probes there, he would very likely be at risk of losing a lot of his workers.
Yes, and I don't know if that's thrown Clem off entirely of the build that he wanted to do, but he's actually gone and put down the CC on location here. And, you know, there isn't a starport coming down yet at all, never mind it being proxied on the maps. So I really wonder what he wanted to go for. Now he's going for a second gas before like a starport's down or anything like that. Very unusual by the Terran player here. And this is going to be a game where these Hellions, even though there's 4 on the map, getting damage done with them, like there's no medevac available and won't be for a while.
No, so the opportunity to try to like jump up into that base is not going to be there without that medevac, right? And the Hellions are going to come up. The Adepts, I think he's going to get that kill on these without too much trouble. The second one might shade away at the last second, but what do we actually have at this wall? Is it still, yeah, okay, he has one more Adept there. There's a pylon. That's a very reasonable way to handle this. You don't want to have to burn the Oracle energy to kill the Hellions, though, but he might have to.
I mean, like, that was me stuttering away very, very weirdly. But yeah, just making sure you don't take damage as ShoWTimE, I think this game is already kind of like a great position to be in. That CC you saw when it was going down, right? Oh, if these Hellions do get in, okay, only 1 remains. So getting damage done here will be pretty difficult to do. 1 probe for 2 Hellions. I mean, those Hellions are pretty useless for anything else other than killing probes. But yeah, if you're ShoWTimE and you saw that the CC was as late as it was, you're probably feeling quite good. And just getting rid of that threat of being able to lose all your probes in an instant, that's nice.
That is always the most terrifying thing. And getting the Terran pressure off of you early on has to be a very comforting feeling. So I'm definitely with you there, the Muslim, as this has been a lot less of a rocky start, to say the least. Almost losing the Oracle, though. Well, maybe things were about to swing back there.
That would have been crucial. Okay, so ShoWTimE saw that there was a Viking and a Cyclone on the map. Very often, this is followed up by one of those big pushes. You've probably seen it on Gabe's stream, where there's a few Vikings to deal with the Phoenix and the air units. And then you start producing tanks, the Marines pull a few SCVs. And the thing is, it's not a super all-in. You can take a third behind it and be very, very cool. And we do see that ShoWTimE is respecting the thought of it. He's throwing down multiple shield batteries and such. But it's still a really hard thing to hold. Yeah, this one scouting Hellion comes up, confirms that third again. Would have been nice if he could have tried to snag that stasis trap, but bringing some SCVs with this one. Really wants to try and lock down this third base, Benjamin. This is definitely a committed, aggressive attack. Now he's still gonna get a third command center behind it, but the Cyclones get stasis, and those. If there's one thing we know about Cyclones, they are big, juicy targets for focus fire from those Stalkers. He needs to set up now if he wants to save those when the stasis ends. This is going to be really gnarly. So ShoWTimE has to act soon, but how soon? Because do things just get worse? Oh, he shot his own Nexus there. Wasted a shot from the Stalkers. Phoenixes are trying to lift the Cyclones, but Clem, he's doing a really good job of focus firing all the Phoenix down. The tank is so far back that it's hard to deal with. And ShoWTimE kind of fall out of range of the entirety of that shield battery overcharge.
Yeah, and the siege tank count is probably the biggest thing to keep our eyes on as this progresses forward too, right? Because if he locks this down and he can inch forward and get a second or a third tank, the Stalkers basically become useless without sending in the Phoenix to try to lift up the tanks while you're doing that. And maybe that's the one thing I'm a little bit curious about is if Clem could put the weakened Marines in the bunker. But oh my God, when you pull probes against Vikings, they do double damage versus mechanical units on the ground that includes probes. They're very good against all of these things.
Yeah, and I mean, ShoWTimE, he is kind of whittling this down, but he just lost 10 probes doing it. And like I said, Clem actually did produce his third CC behind all this as well, and dealing the economic damage that he did, killing all those probes. I mean, ShoWTimE's still struggling to clean this up, and these Vikings actually kill those Stalkers on the right side. The bunker kills a Stalker on the left side. Honestly, ShoWTimE's handling this not the best he could. You know, all as Terrans, we know how good that photon overcharges, or rather the battery overcharge. But the fact that he popped it as early as he did and fought out of range of it for the entirety of that fight, that's an unforgivable mistake. You can't allow that to happen to yourself.
Yeah, I definitely think he underestimated the 3 Vikings that were there too, because that's one of those situations where you feel like you need to push off, but those probe kills right there are what made the whole attack 100% worth it, regardless of anything else that was going to die. You reset the worker advantage that the Protoss player had up to that point. You've secured your 3rd base now, and we're looking at 56, 57, only down about a worker or 2, but you've got mules, so you're feeling good, you're feeling fine. And if you're the Terran player, you're in a pretty rich position. He's just going to get his upgrades a bit later, though. That's like the only downside to this sort of thing. And I don't really know if I can say it's a downside. He's got the economy to build up a big army for when those upgrades complete.
Yeah, if his goal is just to get like 5 barracks running and just do a pretty big timing like he did last game, I think he's going to be somewhere around like 150 supply against 120-ish. And we do see that he's scanning. He sees when the Templar Archives is going down. There's a Rover Bay going down. I mean, those are his only 2 forms of splash that ShoWTimE has right now. But yeah, I think Clem, he's feeling comfortable seeing that. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go right now before any of their AoE is available.
And this is a big opportunity. Big opportunity. I like that he tries to send the Viking in to backstab and try to pull some of the units away. If there's one thing we know about ShoWTimE, defensively, that's supposed to be where the strong points are. He's going to have the units in position, even if it hasn't worked out maybe as well as he had been hoping throughout this game. Just a single immortal, good force fields, peels off a large number of the Marines that are with the front of this attack, and I think that's going to send ShoWTimE, it's going to send Clem packing back home, and it does.
That was definitely clean. That was super clean by ShoWTimE, and he needed something like that because the defense earlier wasn't the best. So he shuts down both the Vikings really nicely, and then kills like maybe 8 supply worth of bio. And all of a sudden, that supply lead that Clem has, ShoWTimE caught well back up, and the armory's only halfway done, so 2-2 hasn't started. We see a Ghost Academy in production, continuous tank production. This is something that's changed a lot in TVP meta, and it makes life a little bit difficult for the Protoss trying to engage against the tanks, but it also slows down the game quite a chunk, which ShoWTimE, honestly, he wants while he's putting up that 4th.
Yeah, definitely need to slow the pace down. You want to get those power units out, and hey, maybe those force fields buy him this time he needs. The disruptor count comes out and he can make some big plays. I always feel like the disadvantage is for the Protoss if they're on even economy with the Terran in these types of situations, because you feel like you always have to put this pressure on and kill probes and shut down bases, but then you're like, no, I'm landing my 4th as their 4th is going, and I should be able to kind of focus more on making sure that I've done the basics correctly. I'm getting my ghosts out, getting my upgrades. Speaking of, I guess, is there an armory? Because we have 1-1 done. Protoss +2 armor's about to finish. Okay, so he needs to, yeah. Well, then as long as he gets the 2-2 started soon, TM, then we should be fine, and just got to set up for that late game and keep making good movements with the army. Yeah,
like the upgrades, he was really powering out the ghosts, as many ghosts as he could, and the tanks and stuff, so I totally understand, because I mean, now he's 190 supply against 160. And upgrade-wise, even though ShoWTimE just finished +2 armor, he's got 0 on the attacks. Granted, disruptors don't benefit from the attack upgrades, and he has how many out? 3, and it's soon going to be 5. The window is closing for Clem, but I think this is a perfect time for him to attack.
Yeah, this is definitely an opportunity. He has a good number of EMPs available, but there's 3 disruptors. The siege tanks are actually going to be very important for trying to zone those away. He has a lot of tanks. Clem has been really favoring siege tanks in his CVP here, and normally our response is supposed to be, okay, well, charge zealots to make that hard, but has not been the case thus far with just the massive amount of bio that he does have. Okay, those tanks are getting really close. I feel like he could Nova most of these down, but he needs to shoot those Novas out if he wants to actually use them.
He certainly does. Clem's doing such a good job of making sure those disruptors do nothing, but ShoWTimE, he bought enough time for 200 supply here, and he's coming in from both sides, Nate.
Yeah, this is going to be really important. The disruptors are coming back on the top. Shots going from the top gets the tanks mostly, as the first shot only kind of withered them down. A lot of the bio is still alive on the low ground. The gateway units alone were not able to do it, but the next disruptor shots coming in have still thinned the herd a bit more as that rally continues to come. But as long as the disruptors are alive and they can keep shooting those Novas out as they come off cooldown, there's like 7 or so of them on top of that ramp. 2 being built at a time is going to allow him to zone away for a really long time, unless Clem decides that he wants to just yeet it and try to kill all the disruptors before the Novas can go off, as another siege tank is picked. But that sounds scary. I mean, a medevac energy is going to be at a premium with how much this army's been stimming to Muslim.
Certainly will be. There's only 8 gateways on the map for ShoWTimE, and I saw his minerals actually escalating there in the 1500s kind of thing. So he's under a lot of pressure from Clem. His upgrades are progressing, but Clem's about to hit 2-2 soon. The disruptor count, though, ShoWTimE has done a really good job of retaining that count. He's up to 10, which is insane. He's actually going for blink DTs as well, and he's actually feeling confident enough to just chase Clem across the map.
Yeah, I like seeing it, like seeing the confidence. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Turn around and fight, and then the purification novas blow up whatever is left of your army? You definitely don't want to do that. I mean, he's still in a great position economy-wise. He still has a massive army, still mega maxed out. He took his 5th base during all of this, and has actually another command center ready to rock and roll. But yeah, thank you for zooming in on that, Observer. That's a beautiful sight right there. Just like 13 disruptors all clumped in on each other. It's like one of those ring toss things a magician does where they all hook into each other.
Yeah, I wonder when, like, how many disruptors becomes too many, though? Because now he's really got an army that he has to look at all the time.
That was I guess that was somewhat what I was trying to get at. I know my analogies don't always hit the mark, but he's got a lot of disruptors, and they're starting to die. And I don't know if that's actually going to make it a bit easier if he focuses the attention somewhere else, but the Dark Shrine with Blink is about to finish, but he doesn't have an answer because there's so many ghosts there. I don't know. Hey, what are those DTs doing in the back of the third? That's weird.
Yes, I have no idea. These tanks and these pickups from Clem have been super duper good. ShoWTimE's army, like a warp prism just flew in and stuff, and yeah, now I see them.
We can see them. They're just, you can't blink up. Although that, you know, Ben, I don't see why a DT couldn't blink to jump up and attack an air unit. I don't know why we never got that.
Although if it blinked up there where those liberators are, I can just imagine them like falling down that.
Oh yeah, then they die. But that's like the trade-off that you want to make. It's like, all right, if I send 1 DT, it kills 1, and then if it dies, but I get to mine off my base again, you know? Oh. Or you send the probes to the other base where the conveniently placed army will snatch all of them up. And it goes from bad to worse.
Yeah, that sucked. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, he obviously wanted to long distance mine from quite a bit away, but, you know, running into the army, not knowing exactly where it is. Clem, his army is secured. It's all in one spot. ShoWTimE is trying to get a run by going, but he's losing all his economy while this is going down, losing his 5th, losing his 4th as well. I think the DTs are spotted as well, so they're not going to deal that much damage. The Disruptor's just kind of marching into this tank line, and ShoWTimE is falling apart in this game.
Yeah, this is just getting worse and worse. A great Disruptor shot there, but, you know, you're picking up points in garbage time. Now, DT's getting some counterattack damage in on the 3rd base. They do wipe out the SCVs there, but Clem still has a worker lead, despite the DTs killing a whole base of SCVs here. That's the situation that this game is in. Now, don't let the orbitals die. One of them gets sniped back at home. That's a problem. If enough of the orbitals get killed, then we know many Protoss players across the world have experienced the magic of, oh yes, you cannot scan me anymore, and I've got blink DTs. Well, there's EMP. No scan required.
No scan required. It doesn't look like he has one either. Oh, yes.
Another EMP.
So yeah, Clem finally deals with that push, and ShoWTimE trying to deal counter damage over here. Nice quick repair by Clem. 30 SCVs are falling, and wow, that's a lot of Clem right outside ShoWTimE's front doorstep, though.
Yeah, I think in this situation, if the only thing that I think Clem maybe would consider, I mean, he has ghosts with his army, so this isn't a big deal. I'm mostly spitballing here, but maybe try to send a worker or two across the map with the army, build a turret. I think we actually saw ShoWTimE do that against ShoWTimE at some point in their previous match. I can't remember if it was a different TVP that might have been one of the NA games, but this is, as long as you've got the orbitals mostly intact and you can keep scanning, you're fine. The DT in the back, though, gets one of the tanks. Another one's very low, so it did take some damage on the tail end of this. Disruptor shots are going to go out, but I mean, siege tanks are very good against those. More DTs blink onto those tanks, however.
Yeah, the DTs are actually doing a decent job. I mean, that was 2 tanks. Now the Disruptors might be able to get something done, but let's be real. Clem's owning this game. Like, ShoWTimE's doing what he can, trying to fight on every front, but he's losing on absolutely every front. Clem doubling a supply at this point in ShoWTimE. You can see the frustration on his face. GG. Clem leads this series 2-0.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth to that position. And Clem just held on well. He was able to take some damage on the outside, but never gave up the production, never gave up the core. And great play by him. Guys, we're going to go to a break before we jump into game 3. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the DreamHack Masters. I know you're very excited, as are we, to see who's going to win this match. Clem leads the series 2-0 over D-Mauer, who has not been able to hold up against the relentless assault from our young Terran player, DeMuslim. He is on fire.
Yeah, he's destroying ShoWTimE, man. Like, he really is. We haven't really got to see ShoWTimE get going, which is very unusual to say. Like, and Clem, all it takes is for ShoWTimE to slip at once, and he's kind of got him. And so far, these games, it's been obvious or not super obvious, but Clem, he hasn't been like untouchable. Like, there, he didn't cancel the engineering bay. You saw he's a little bit flustered, and maybe like his build definitely got thwarted a little bit, because that's quite a lot of lost minerals right there. It's like 94 that you should be getting, kind of thing. But yeah, ShoWTimE just making mistakes that you shouldn't be making at this level of play, and at his level as well. Because the only reason I'm very critical against ShoWTimE is I know how good he can be. Anyhow, spawning over in the bottom right-hand side of Lightshade, it is Clem.
opponent in the Northwest, the red Protoss player, he is ShoWTimE.
Interesting part will be what build order Clem chooses to go for this time, because he's been pretty good in this series thus far with just kind of throwing different things at ShoWTimE, right? Making his life a little bit more difficult. And it's kind of one of the weapons that Terran has these days, is the fact that there's so many kind of abusive openings where you can just throw Hellions, one base all-ins, Widowmine drops, or still play totally safe and standard with things like Ravens and 3CC builds.
Yeah, I love seeing that. Love seeing that. And I wouldn't even mind if he had a really good aggressive build in mind for trying to just try and close this one out. I always love seeing when the 2-0 player tries to make a big move and kind of show that confidence in the way that the series has been going. But, you know, he started the series with that, right? It was a proxy factory, proxy barracks. The starport was built at home, sure, but you know, he's brought out a bit of smoke and mirrors for this series, which is a nice contrast to Gabe's victory, where it was more so like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just macro well and beat you to death that way. So Clem's range, I think, is one of the more important things too, because that's always been one of the factors that plays into people being like, oh, why are Korean Terrans so good? Part of it is, you know, you never know if any of them are proxying you on any game because of how often that they do it. And being able to not be predictable is as valuable as anything else in a competitive RTS.
So this game, Clem, and you're absolutely right, by the way, the variety of the builds and stuff, like you can't know what they're doing until you scout it. Predictability allows you to cut so many corners against players that you do know what they're doing, but Clem, he's not one of them. This is very much looking like it's going to be like a 4 Hellion drop if you can get away with it. I'm a little surprised that he goes here with the starport, because this is kind of bringing me back to ShoWTimE versus ShoWTimE on this exact map, I do believe, where an Adept went up there and did cancel the starport, or rather the SCV building starport at like 99% or so. Oh my goodness, is the Adept going to head over there? I think
that's literally what happened on this map, by the way, when he played ShoWThermal, and it was at 99%.
Oh, no!
No, come on, it's the same spot! ShoWThermal put it in the same...
Okay,
I got nothing for that. This was literally the last TVP that he played in this tournament on this map, is this exact same build. That is tragic.
Super tragic, super tragic. Like, I think he would have had enough time to do exactly the same thing that happened to ShoWThermal. And the fact that it worked out so well for him against ShoWThermal, like this is a super obvious spot as well. And the fact that he scouted everywhere but here, even though that was obviously unlucky, it's also like ShoWTimE. I think he's just feeling a little bit off, you know? Oh my God, and the one dark space of his base as well.
And there's the Hellions inside the main. This could end up being a quick one if these continue to keep blasting these probes down. Now, he did try to split them as well as he can, but 9 workers dying at 4 minutes is huge. And yeah, that's it. He just taps out. Clem